From the moment I began this challenge over a year ago, I had this feeling that I was doing something no one else had done, beating every level of GTFO solo, bots only. With how hard this game is at a base level, I would have been happy finishing just half of the levels. But as I learned about this game and became more involved in the community, it became clear to me that there were people who had already done everything bots only. Heck, some even took it one huge step further and beat every level entirely by themselves. With that in mind, I started to reflect on what the goals for this challenge should be. What am I trying to prove to you, or myself even? If people have already done what I'm trying to do, and more, is it really worth chasing this goal? After some reflection on my life choices, I think I've found an answer that should help reframe this series as a whole. For you, I want to say this is about finding which levels are possible for the more casual players of the game. The people who don't feel like sinking more than 200 hours into learning everything about this game. As for my goals, I wanted to prove myself capable of overcoming overwhelming odds in the form of a game that's just not designed for solo play. So with that preamble out of the way, let's dive into how I completed all of Rundown 8 with the trusty bots by my side. You may be most familiar with Rundown 8 due to Swift's video series, and I can say with confidence that it is indeed the hardest rundown we'll see in this game, but it is also the most unique in its challenges, from the new nightmare enemies to fresh objectives that aren't just rehashes of previous levels. As a result of this, we'll find that the toughest levels are, in a sense, way more doable bots only, since we can use new solutions to these new problems. I really enjoyed some of these levels because of this, and I could spend hours talking about every meticulous detail that went into my strategies, but we should definitely get going. There will be time to explain general strategies in the easier levels, and for what time remains, we'll cover the harder levels in much more detail. For the last time, let us descend into R8A1 Order. Like always, A1 stands to be an easy stage. I actually did this stage and several others on stream if you want to see how it went down live. We start in a unique garden tile that is never seen again after this. It goes without saying that Rundown 8 is filled to the brim with rooms that are only seen for their respective mission. Earthquake. So I won't spend too much time talking about it. Thankfully, the bots can navigate most of these environments without trouble, so let's get on with it. Moving through the sparsely populated rooms, we end up in an extremely bushy room. I said it before, and I'll say it again, there's a good reason that plants are rarely used as a visual obstruction. We have our first alarm in this room, where you can bear witness to my new weapons, the sawed-off shotgun and the Hell Rifle. While my old weapons are very powerful in their own right, these guns will provide me with way more killing power. The sawed-off shotgun is a thinly veiled special weapon that sits in the main weapon category, dishing out absurd damage to anything within range. It one-shots every small enemy and 4-shots giants, and it can kill all but one scout in one shot. It's basically a mini scattergun with a lot more versatility and ammo. As for the Hell Rifle, it too one-taps small enemies from a good distance and kills the same scouts in one shot. The most important feature, however, is its ability to penetrate up to 5 enemies in one shot. This multiplies its potential by an absurd amount. Some might say by 5, since you can clear waves with ease as long as you're positioned decently. Combined with the sawed-off, you could solo clear most missions provided you had the ammo to deal with everything. I'll be honest, I slept really hard on this combo, and a lot of the earlier stages would be way easier using these weapons, but so be it. I am happy to admit I was wrong. Anyways, here's the matter wave projector. This thing will be important later, but we'll be handing it over to Schaefer for safekeeping. After that, we begin the error alarm run to the finish line. This alarm spawns 2 strikers every 10 seconds, nothing too hard in this context. We safely extract without breaking a sweat. So, the descent into madness begins. A couple things regarding unique tiles. During the extraction run, we encounter a room variant that I don't think we see anywhere else, and you would barely notice it because the path forward is on the opposite side. It's a bit cozy in here. What a shame that we'll never see it again. Then we have the weirdest asset in my opinion, consisting of a very normal room, and then it's kinda mirrored above us. There's upside down staircases, water dripping down to the ground floor, and some dead bodies for flavor. It seems this is a bit lore related, but even with that context, it still barely makes sense to my small brain. Anyways, that's all for the transition. A1 is just an easy stage. We should move forth to R8B1 Effect. Our goal for this mission is to collect 3 data cubes, and an additional data cube for the secondary objective. Nothing too complicated on its face. To start, we'll have the usual sneaking to do, and then a class 3 alarm to warm up the new guns. I've said it in previous videos, but some of these alarms really are like 15 seconds of fighting after doing scans. It's by design, obviously, as enemies spawn further away and behind doors in easier missions. I'm going to do my best to cut down this level since there's a total of 6 alarms, all of which are relatively easy with sentries alone. Once the bodies hit the floor, subsequently dissolving into nothing, we can collect the first data cube. We're now in a similar dimension to the first, and we get to see some interesting assets for the first and only time, I believe. These little humanoid sacks do not indicate a respawn room, but they are a sign of something new coming up. That new thing is the nightmare enemies, of course. They change the dynamic quite a bit when it comes to bots only, at least for the nightmare strikers. Think of how bad chargers are for the bots, and then multiply that by 4. The strikers do 16 damage when they punch you, and they have more health than chargers, and their weak spot is this tiny bubble that's really hard to hit usually. The only upside is that their licks do 8 damage, which is news to me. I thought it was more. Anyways, the bots love to run into these guys, so shooting them before the bots get swarmed is very important. Then there's the nightmare shooters, who are only slightly better than giant shooters, which is to say they're not much of a threat. They do have a lick attack that does 12 damage, but they opt to shoot you if they can. Normal shooters tend to be more annoying because you encounter them more often, so yeah. Anyways, we have a class 5 diminished alarm that gets thwarted with some well-placed mines. The nightmare enemies are sent here to help you get used to their mechanics. Then we can move on to collect the second data cube of 4. This one teleports us to the OG dimension before bringing us right back, as there's one more data cube to collect here. Good thing too, I get to show off yet another new enemy, which is this little crawling scout, also known as a zoomer scout. She's got less health than a normal scout, but in return sprouts its tentacles way faster. Importantly, it also detects you way quicker than other scouts, so no more running through tentacles to get the kill. We collect the third data cube and move forth to start the aforementioned secondary objective. Not before yet another alarm, however. The secondary objective starts us in a large room filled to the brim with enemies. Oh, someone did wake up. Get him, guys. I don't know, bruh. You guys could do anything. Well, I just hit the wall. Well, let's go, boys. They just actually kill everyone. Oh, there's one more. Okay, this is annoying. This is stupid. Line them up. I don't care where you're from, we're shooting out that bad boy for fun. After yet another alarm, we enter the Zoomer Scout room, one that hopes to teach you about the mechanics I just mentioned, seeing as there's 5 of them. We make it through without a problem, and our reward is one last alarm, just to hammer it in how many there are. With that done, the last thing for us to do is kill a tank. There's a lot of ways to do such a thing, but I felt the most normal thing to do here was freeze it with seafoam. I then almost got my ass handed to me.
Triple kill.
I was a little too relaxed playing this level, so it was a nice reminder that if I died, I'd have to clear 6 alarms again. With the tank dead, we can collect the 4th and final data cube and head directly to extraction. There's an extraction alarm that sends some nightmare enemies our way. Lore-wise, I suppose they're trying to tell us that the nightmares have followed us out of their dimension, and that we should expect to see more of them in the future. It's a bit of a drawn-out level, but I think R8B1 serves to be a condensed tutorial for many of the game's mechanics, from extraction alarms, to new enemies, to dimension jumping, and everything in between. It can be reasonably assumed that some of the new players were going to jump into R8 first, despite how bad of an idea that is. Anyways, R8B2 will be the first of several levels where doing the extra objectives puts us on a separate path than if we did the main objective. I'll talk about the differences after finishing the level, so without further ado, R8B2 Warp. Dropping in, you'll notice I've already changed weapons from those I mentioned. The Hell Auto Pistol is back in action, and it's here to help balance ammo usage with the Dreadful Sniper. In hindsight, I could have just brought the same loadout as before, but I just wanted to have some fun with the Old Faithful. Once we get into this room, a scan starts from this broken bulkhead hub. Begrudgingly, I do the scan, revealing horrors beyond my comprehension. Just look at those Krakens. I mean, could they at least acknowledge us and give us a friendly wave? So inhospitable. On the trip back, some sand follows us, and a perfectly intact bulkhead hub replaces the broken one. Like I said earlier, we'll be taking a different route as a result of choosing the secondary over the main objective. That route leads us to a Class 5 diminished alarm in this small room, and it's here that I'll talk about the bots' weapons. My opinion on this has shifted over time, but after some people suggested burst cannon and hell revolvers on all bots, I can confidently say that it's probably the best loadout for the bots in most cases. The short of it is that these weapons are very ammo efficient for any level that has boss enemies, or a lot of giants and hybrids. Most harder levels, in other words. You'll see the loadouts for them change throughout the video until E2, but if I could go back, I'd probably use that loadout for every level. Anyways, we start yet another alarm with sustain scans, which helps confirm that we are in fact on the harder path. The alarm is still fairly easy, but I want to note the distinct lack of doors to stop the enemy. There is one door, but it's most likely broken at this point because of the previous alarm. With that finished, we arrive at a dead-end zone that contains a terminal. This terminal, of course, has a command, bringing us back to the incomprehensible dimension. All the Krakens in the distance are missing this time around, and we'll soon figure out why. That's right, Kraken error alarm. Okay, that sounds stupid, but imagine the potential. Upon teleporting back, we have to handle a small error alarm that lasts until we interact with the door next to the bulkhead hub. It's just 5 small guys every 30 seconds. Kill the first wave and run past the rest if you're struggling. A checkpoint is rewarded to us for our efforts. The next zone is entirely unique to this mission, with broken terminals strewn about. We must interact with 3 of them, teleporting us each time to the same area to do a terminal command, then teleporting back into the main room to do an alarm. Got that? Broken terminal 1. I guess they just spawn on the wall there? That's weird. Terminal command. Fight a small amount of enemies here, and then fight a lot of enemies here. You'll see I was pretty low health here, but it's just because I was streaming and not locked in, you know? With some skillful dodges, we make it through without a hitch. Side note while I fight, but this room absolutely tanks your FPS. I heard it has something to do with the second room being stacked on top of this one, but I couldn't exactly figure out what that means. Terminal 2 is next. Flyers look to bother us this time around, in both universes no less, but otherwise, the alarm is even easier because the scans are static. Terminal 3 sends exactly 2 Nightmare Strikers. But instead of teleporting back to that room, this one takes us to a familiar place. After inputting one last command, a familiar enemy ambushes us. It's the Kraken, the whole reason why I brought the sniper. He has 1500 health points here, 1/4 of what he had in R6D1, so he barely puts up a fight. As long as we hit our shots, we should have plenty of resources to go around. With how close this Kraken is, even the sawed-off shotgun does effective damage to the tumors. In addition to the nightmare enemies and the meatballs, it's just that strong. Oh, tumor. This fight isn't too hard overall, and after 3 tumors, the big bad goes down like the rest of them. Surely we'll never see him again after this. The mission is essentially beaten at this point, save for an ambush at the extraction. So far, the most unique level we've seen, and it's something we can expect to see much more of. The differences between the main objective and the secondary comes down to a few small things. Of course, we enter different doors, but we have 2 smaller class alarms to accomplish before converging to that big room with the broken terminals. Once there, things play out exactly the same as far as I'm aware. That is, until we finish the 3rd command. Instead of being taken to the Kraken arena, we enter a much more rundown version of the big room, and we have scans to do all around that room once we enter another command. The security doors are broken in, and nightmare enemies seek to be the main threat. If it's not obvious, both paths are very doable bots only. The strategies have been very straightforward so far. It'd be a shame if the first and only overload objective made solo completion nearly impossible sometimes. Time to see how we overcome the odds in R8C1 Link. What was that at the top? It was like a timer? Was that a timer? I think that was a timer. For this mission, I chose to hold the biotracker myself. It's not entirely necessary for success, but the secondary objective is fairly tedious due to a mixture of shadow enemies and thick fog. Since the bots are unable to communicate with me where the invisible enemies are, this allows me to clear it much faster. If only I could see. We start off with a terminal command that begins cycling fog every minute or 2, going between 4 settings of thick fog to basically no fog. The biotracker mitigates this problem, but when it comes to alarms in the level, it's worth timing it so that you fight enemies while the fog is cleared. This is the only level with a unique mechanic like this, but it only serves as a nuisance more than anything. With that explained, I'm now going to skip ahead to the hard part of the level, because it's going to take quite a bit of explaining. As part of the grand strategy, we will complete everything in the secondary except for the terminal command at the end of it. I'll explain why in a moment, but after some relatively easy alarms, we can begin the hard part. Just like the last mission, we can only complete one objective between the main and overload. Choosing the overload, it's revealed to us that the objective is once again timed sequences, the same as R7D1. Just like that mission, we have a relatively good checkpoint right before for easy retries. First things first though, we gotta clear this huge room. 2 normal scouts, 1 zoomer scout, a few small enemies, and a brand new variant of the scout, the Nightmare Scout. Fucking god, man. For the most part, the scout is impossible to kill solo, at least without C-Foam, but even with C-Foam, we'll be required to shoot it to kill it, as no melee weapon can damage the scout enough to kill it before the C-Foam expires. Thankfully, the scouts in this mission all spawn the usual wave of 12 enemies or so we can tank it just fine. With the uniquely large server room cleared out, we can now talk about what we need to do. As I mentioned, this level is just like R7D1, where we have time sequences to complete, which almost exclusively relies on having 2 people to coordinate at 2 different terminals to progress. The bots this far in still cannot operate terminals, so we're gonna have to do what we can by ourselves. This is the main terminal that we'll have to operate from, with 5 others sitting inside this zone. Once we start any given sequence, we'll need to go to the specified terminal to input another command, then run back to the first terminal within 10 seconds to complete the sequence. Great. Now, which terminals are we able to make that run for? There's a total of 16 distributed throughout 4 zones. Out of the 4 zones that it can be in, including this initial zone, we can reach every terminal in this initial zone, and that's it, 5 in total. The other 3 zones are just so far away, not to mention that they're filled with enemies and locked until I start the objective. On the bright side, we only have to get lucky enough 3 times instead of 4 times, but the bigger problem here is the enemies being sent. In R7D1, enemies are sent while the time is running, and if you fail, an additional wave is sent, but once you kill those enemies, you can recuperate and try again. In this case, enemies will continue spawning until you can complete the given sequence, so if you fail the first sequence 4 times in a row, good luck surviving 12 minutes of unending giants. Now let's say we get the first sequence out of 3 completed, subsequently ending the giant waves. We recover on resources and start the next sequence. It's a terminal that we can't reach. Well, now it's not just infinite giants, but infinite nightmare enemies, and also snatchers for wave 2. That's game. Wave 3 sends tanks in place with the snatchers, so we're even more cooked there. So what's the strategy here? Well, with Wave 1 only sending giants and the occasional hybrid, we're able to withstand them for a good amount of time before we get low on ammo. What this means is that we don't need to get the correct terminal right away. There's some room for bad luck. Presuming that we'd last long enough, we'll eventually get a terminal in this first zone, allowing us to progress to the second sequence. That's it. Once here, my plan was to simply roll the dice to get the correct terminal 2 more times in a row. Otherwise, we reset to the checkpoint. Truly, a genius in the making over here. I had some other ideas, but the only way to get around the infinite enemies is to simply long kite them while the bots are dead, something that I really didn't want to do at the time. If I did get a bad terminal on sequence 2, I always tried to shoot it out, but inevitably we would be overrun if I couldn't finish the sequence after that. All I was asking for was 3 terminals in a row. Was that so much to ask? Apparently not. It only took me 4 attempts to get lucky enough. The first 2 attempts were just scouting sessions where I didn't really know what was going on, and then the 3rd and 4th attempts were within the same session, where I had a much better idea of what I was going to do. Let me just try to get that command in. I didn't get the command in. Oh no. That's crazy that you got me around the corner. Anyways, after dying on the second sequence from bad luck, I reloaded into the easiest win of my life. I had every potential terminal written down in the chat so that I wouldn't have to frantically search each one. I started the objective and immediately had a good terminal. 555, that's the correct one. Apparently, once a terminal in a given zone is selected, if you roll the same zone again, it'll always be that terminal that gets selected again. So we just had to look out for 555 again. After clearing the few giants that spawned, I began the second sequence. Oh shit, 555 again. It really is a super easy mission if you get lucky like this and prepare for what's coming. My guy, you just don't have to. Once I cleared the enemies out again, I took this time to go and finish the secondary objective. The consequence there is that after finishing each sequence, it'll spawn a huge wave of shadows, so by waiting until I've finished 2 sequences, it makes it as easy as possible for me. You can choose to do this after the 3rd sequence, but you'll have to fight a small error alarm while running, and I just didn't want to take that risk. We get back to the overload and continue with a 3rd and final sequence. It's 3 in a row. This is it, this is it, this is the one, this is the one. All 3 in a row. I'm not sure how the RNG works for this, but if it truly is a 1 in 4 chance for each zone to be selected, that adds up to a 1 in 64 chance to get this to occur. Anyways, there's a tank now if you recall the part where I said a tank spawns on the 3rd sequence. I was pretty bad at fighting tanks at this point, but with some good positioning, I landed the final blow, meaning we could get to extraction now. Yes. The error alarm consists of 4 smalls every 30 seconds. Some shadows from the last wave were still left over, however, leading to this alarming moment. Oh, that's a lot of enemy. Why did all the enemies fucking spawn in just now? Anyways, full team scan, please guys. Apparently, this is one of, if not the only full team extraction scans. So for once, the bots are forced to sit in the green circle with my stinky ass. Let's fucking go. That's huge. There's a good amount of details I skipped over with that level, understandably. For one, there's a few spots that are mostly inaccessible to the enemies, including this one where they are incapable of piercing the glass. You can even melee the enemies through it. I was aware of this on my first attempt and tried to use it once I got a bad terminal. However, what I didn't know at the time was that enemies would keep spawning until I could finish the sequence, which led me to melee dozens of these guys, thinking it would end at some point. I stopped after 7 hopeless minutes. Is what I would say if I didn't spend 20 minutes doing this. Besides that, the other strategy to consider for bots only is to finish the first sequence, then clear out all 3 zones, since they can't open until you've started the objective. This would allow you to at least retry sequences faster should you get a bad terminal, as there is no real consequence to failing them. Though you should take care to know that a new snatcher or tank will spawn every time you start a new sequence, at least based on my testing. You also get more resources as a result, which is never a bad thing. I would have resorted to this at some point if I didn't get so gosh darn lucky. Unrelated to the level, I also wanted to talk about the Nightmare Scouts a bit. There is a way to eliminate them without Seafoam solo, something that speedrunner Frosty informed me of. Using the cursed loadout of a sniper and a sawed-off shotgun, you can just barely kill it before it alerts. There is practically no scenario where we need to do this, but it doesn't hurt to know. If you want to silently kill the scout, however, there's an incredibly risky bots-only strategy that I'd never use. It involves Seafoam and very tight timing. You prime the scout to be Seafoamed with one more blip, purposefully begin alerting the scout, then freeze it. If done correctly, the bots will help you kill the scout while Seafoamed, meaning you can melee kill it. The one level where this might be worth considering, R8D2, is unfortunately one where I don't bring Seafoam, rendering this point moot. But hey, now you know. Last thing worth mentioning is this fucked up geometry. Who did this? Let's move on to a much more simple stage, R8D1 Tandem. This level does some very interesting things, and it starts to show the uniqueness of Rundown 8 more explicitly. Our goal? Well, we just gotta meet Schaefer in the gardens. That doesn't sound so bad. Hopefully the monsters don't get to him first. Speaking of which, the first chargers of the rundown show up here, and in the next zone over, the first respawn zone also rests in this level. Being this close to the entrance zone, I wonder if it's going to be a forward extract or not. Once we clear it out, we'll notice a big red scan that shouldn't be there. Being the prisoners we are though, that looks like candy to me, so of course I hop right in. This spawns a tank. I don't know what kind of security system they got down here, but we'll have to take heed to not touch any other corrupted scans moving forward. Well, except for one much later, but we'll get there. After killing the tank with my trusty loadout, we head into the next zone, which is also a respawn zone. It's littered with more corrupted scans to make backtracking more annoying. As a side note, the bots cannot activate these scans, although it would be really funny if they could. One easy charger alarm later, we finally arrive in the central hub of the level, where most of the important events will occur. We've got 3 locked security doors at the top, and a terminal down at the bottom that we'll have to precariously navigate to. If there weren't 2 scouts in this room, I would go loud at the top to easily clear it. Once we get to the terminal, we enter a command to unlock one of the 3 doors I mentioned. This also causes infection fog to rise from under us, meaning we gotta schmoo. This isn't too hard to accomplish, however. We enter the first security door from this zone, and as you can imagine, the infection fog will do its best to be a problem, alongside the spitters. I've mentioned this before, but it's a neat way to force people to walk up to sleeping enemies instead of crouching everywhere, since you'd get infected otherwise. Guys, you do not have to let him run up to you. He just shot him. He just killed his own teammate. That was him, not me. Up next is a class 3 alarm in this awful room. The scans will go deep into fog, and I hadn't found fog repellers to use, but conveniently I can use the bots to go into those scans by just standing directly above them. For those who don't know or remember, the bots do not take infection damage, and it's one of their main benefits in levels like these. Anyways, once we finish the alarm, we run a command on the terminal in the next zone, disinfect, and grab the fog turbine for the next part of the level. Heading back into the big hub room, you'll notice that the enemies have seemingly respawned. You ran away! Oh my god, thank god the scream didn't work. Luckily, this little guy didn't wake up the room, but an event was triggered when we did that terminal command, which specifically respawned the scouts and some charger giants. You can tell this is the case because the scouts will not respawn if you walk far enough away, nor the giants. Clearing the room again, we head back down with our turbine to do another terminal command. This time, a unique alarm starts spawning enemies above us, and the only way to end it is to push to the top of the room, all the while avoiding the red scans. You can place a turret at the top to help, but this isn't too hard to accomplish either way. That command unlocked door number 2, which leads to a zone filled with more corrupted scans. The goal here, once we've cleared it out, is to initiate a zone scan and hold off the enemies sent at us. Creating a choke point here turns it to a cakewalk. This level is honestly super easy to get through if you know what's going on. Doing that last command unlocked the third door in the hub room, and here's where things get really hard depending on your luck. Schaefer has inexplicably morphed into a team scan here, and once we complete it, we'll have to run back to Extraction ASAP. Firstly, an ambush of 2 Charger Giants and 2 Hybrids hold us back. Hi guys, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? You guys gonna shoot? I killed the most important enemy, but we are losing time right now. This is bad because the surge alarm is primed to begin after 90 seconds. We run through the hub room, which is once again respawned. The more important rooms to get through are the ones that have respawn chargers in it, and I was not looking good for health. Getting extremely lucky with enemy spawns, we managed to make it to Extraction with all the bots alive, somehow. The ending to that level can be really rough depending on where enemies spawn, so the most you can hope for is just being high on health and making it as close to Extraction as possible before the surge alarm hits. Anyways, for your round of fun facts, there's a terminal in this one room zone. That might sound normal, but it's very strangely hidden out of bounds for some reason. If you do some parkour on the invisible walls, it's possible to reach a normal gameplay. There's no logs or anything, so you're not missing out on much. Why it's there is anyone's guess, though I imagine there were some plans to make this area reachable, and then they went against it and left the terminal as a relic. This is the only case I can think of where a terminal is out of bounds. Up next is the most run-and-gun type of stage I can think of in the game. Perhaps it's really fun with a 4-stack of real players, but the bots are notoriously bad at running and gunning. And it has a secondary objective. R8E1 Valiant. Dropping in, we have a 1-minute buffer period before a Warden protocol begins. That 1 minute is very short, and RNG will dictate the chance of our success right away, as we need both a key card and, more importantly, the bulkhead key. You must remember that I'm the only one who can search for the keys, adding a new layer of difficulty to solo play. Opening the secondary objective as the timer ends will make the level much easier to get through, as we'll need all the time we can get. Just don't worry about the enemies there. I love shutting it in their face like that. I reset quite a few times in the first zone due to RNG, as it can take way too much time to grab the keys. The enemies have weird spawn rules for this initial zone, spawning inside of this tiny room even if we're inside there. Once we get into the secondary room, our objective updates, telling us that we have to do a terminal command, so we do exactly that and nothing more. A team scan initiates, and instead of doing that team scan, we leave to complete the main objective. This strategy was brought up to me by Giggins from the last video, and I'll talk more about what's going on here after we finish the level. We're now in full run and gun mode, and we need to spend the next 10 minutes progressing through 13 security doors and zones, with very little resources to grab early on. This is primarily the reason I brought the mine deployer, as it saves me a lot of ammo. There's tons of enemies that will spawn behind us, and due to the door opening animations and team scans, they will eventually catch up. Thank you. It's once we reach this zone that we'll start to encounter the Horde directly, as we need to find a key card to unlock the next door. Playing bots only though, we'll have to micromanage them a little bit, since they're going to magnetize to the terminal and lockers in here, when you don't quite have time to open them all. Just remember to ping any boxes you see while clearing the enemies out. I just shot my teammate. Rough and tumble. Besides the key, we also find our first ammo pack. A humble 2-use pack. As we make our way forward from there, we'll have to worry about a snatcher soon, and believe me, I have the fastest trigger finger in the West.
Hi.
Please! Oh, it didn't stun him. It didn't stun him! So be it. You win some, you lose some. In this next zone, reminiscent of R2E1, there are resources to be found, but I always took the opportunity to keep moving forward, since the next few zones are easier to search. Okay, who's dead? There's a door there, I know, Bishop, please. It's so unnecessary of you to tell me that there's a door there. Ammo! Bless. This is the last stretch of the mission, where everything starts coming down on you. The main concern is the numerous giants that are going to start spawning, when the bots are starting to run low on ammo. I would tell you to keep running as a strategy, but after this zone, we're going to be forced to wait for the timer to end before ending the onslaught. So we place turrets down and start gunning as best as we can. Oh, you idiot, you idiot, you idiot, you're so close to him. Okay, please stop meleeing them. Oh, he doesn't have ammo, so he feels like meleeing them. Oh, it's so annoying. Locking in. Okay, scan, scan, scan. Go do it, go do it. I just need the checkpoint, and then we run forward, and we shut the fucking alarm off. Go, 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 go. We can finally breathe a sigh of relief from getting the checkpoint and stopping the enemies. The level's not over yet, but I want to point out that I managed to get to that checkpoint scan several times, with at least one bot dead, meaning that I couldn't actually do the scan. Jesus. Anyways, I'll talk more about that in a moment. Opening this Apex door will spawn like 4 Nightmare Strikers for some reason, but from there, I can take my time and grab resources that I missed in the previous zones. Coupling that with all the resources from this zone, we should be good for days of shooting. We place our restock turrets and get a move on to the next part of the mission. We have to hold off inside of this room for a good 2 minutes. Ultimately, not a hard endeavor after all we went through, but the Nightmare Strikers can easily kill the bots if you don't disperse them. Oh, that's cool. I didn't notice the dust. Once that occurs, you'll know that the enemies should have stopped spawning, so we clear them out and get ready to complete the secondary objective. Wow, that's a lot of enemies. 3 enemies were stuck? But they're just actually stuck. They're not, like, they didn't target anyone. A mild 3-minute jog later, the scan finally reaches completion. Now, we gotta book it back to the last zone of the mission. KDS Deep, mildly destroyed. But, oh, by the way, watch this, watch this. The bots are gonna walk on something invisible that's specifically designed for them to be able to walk on, because otherwise they can't drop down. This is it. We have to survive for a little bit of time before the mission is considered completed, but if you've made it this far, it's basically over. It's a really cool set piece to accompany the story that's being told. I'd highly recommend watching Astral Fist's video series on this rundown if you somehow haven't already seen it. I'm just gonna kite them. Oh, hey, tank. Hi, buddy. Yeah, no. I walked into him on purpose, but huge, we did it. After all that, the fire fades away into nothing. Let's talk about the strategy that was employed here. Like I said, Giggins brought it up during one of my live streams that this would potentially work as a cheese strat. The thing about this level is that it already had a small history of being exploited on release, as initially, you could literally just skip the secondary until the last second like I did, since nothing prevents you from running all the way back and opening the door. This is still the case, however after an update, the terminal will now refuse the command after opening this door in the main objective, responding with the message about quarantine being broken. A foolproof fix for the exploit. But once a command has been placed and the scan is spawned in, we can just leave it behind forever. Nothing in the game removes scans like these without you completing it first. What they could have done to prevent this cheese was tie the consequence to opening the secondary door, rather than the command. This way, it doesn't matter if you do the scan or not, you still gotta fight more enemies, incentivizing you to just finish the objective. Speaking of which, I'm almost certain doing this level as intended, bots only, would be close to impossible without cheese. There's just so much to shoot, and having the coordination of 4 players is a necessity, not a suggestion. Maybe with enough dedication, but as it stands, the main objective is already hard enough. We're moving on to the second half of the rundown, where things are going to get much more difficult. I'm talking boss enemies, error alarms, and some of the hardest alarms we've ever seen. R8A2 Perspective. We will be taking double shotguns for the first and only time in this series. Resources are pretty stingy in this mission, and the secondary objective asks a lot from us. Importantly, there's no tool ammo to be found anywhere, so as a result, I must save the seafoam and turret for later. For now, we gotta clear some normal ass enemies like usual. The first alarm of the level pulls no punches and sends a good amount of giants and hybrids. I prepared by putting mines on all 3 doors here, but ideally, you have 3 remaining afterwards. Oh my god. Fuck you. I hate you in particular. I took all the damage there, which is fine. This level is fairly short, so if things go south, we can just reset of course. But this was an ideal amount of resources to be left with. We loot the next zone, keeping hold of a 4-use ammo pack, and prepare for the secondary objective. It's no secret by now, but we have to walk through this moss wall here to input a command on a hidden terminal, granting access to the secondary. A2 is another mission where doing the secondary is an entirely separate path from the main objective, even more so than the previous levels. We complete the scan here and teleport to the tutorial mission. I wanted to do a whole bit here pretending like this is a crazy reveal, and it is a surprise, but I am fashionably late to the party. Our objective here is to get to the end of the tutorial, and then do a small run back to extract. As far as getting there in the first place, we gotta take a very linear path through some scripted enemy spawns, starting with nightmare enemies and a zoomer scout in the first zone. We pretty much cannot afford to take damage until the end, so take extreme care in clearing the designated rooms. Moving ahead, the next challenge is a big mother. She will always spawn right next to this hack lock that will be melted away. I thought it'd be funny if they decided to put a smash lock here instead, forcing you to use lock melters, but so be it. We walk past her into the next encounter, a nightmare scout and 2 giants. We could sneak by them hypothetically, but for safety, I seafoamed the scout and cleared it out with my handy shotgun. The next room should absolutely be cleared, however, as it contains a singular sleepy tank. Things are going to get real loud during the run to extraction, and this tank isn't going to take kindly to the disturbance. In other words, we have to run through this room later. Just gonna hit him. Rather unideal. Now, what other enemies have we not seen yet? Ah yes, a normal mother behind the blood door. She is by herself, and I have the most ideal loadout to kill her in 1 cycle, thankfully. The last minor challenge is the Class 5 Diminished Alarm. This is where we'll expend all of our seafoam, 1 trip mine, and a bit of turret ammo. Everything about this alarm is normal, except for the potato freak that's about to show up. It's considered a nightmare giant, but it might as well be a bizarro tank enemy considering how much health he has. Sadly, this is the only mission that we'll see him in, so we make quick work of him. We have 1 guy who's low on health. Unfortunate, but if nothing else, I'll just get rid of the bot and I won't bring him back, because it is highly unlikely that that boy will make it through. Once that alarm has been cleared, we can prepare for the ending, using the resources we have left over. It goes as follows. I place the turret right outside the alarm room facing in, as we can expect nightmare strikers to pour in through here and get stun locked while running back. As for the trip mines, I placed 1 on the tank room door just in case enemies spawn back there, and then the last mine was placed in a silly spot to potentially clear stragglers. The only thing left to do is walk through a room filled with nightmare scouts. Setting these off would be a reset, so be extra patient when trying to open the door on the other side. Opening said door leads to the fake extraction scan. After waiting a little bit for the scouts to retract their tentacles, I finished the scan and prayed for a clear shot. Yeah, there goes Dada. Let me just get rid of Dada. We don't even have to revive him. Reload. There we go. Oh, the Mega Mother. Look, nightmare babies. Everything went perfectly. I'll admit though that the few times I've cleared this mission, it took me so many tries to perfect it. I think my luck in not setting off the scouts in this room was a huge reason why the run back wasn't as bad. And then the mine was just... Despite that, Dada did still go down, and it reveals just how easy it is for them to die while running back through all the nightmare enemies. The focus on having health paid off. You can see this in my runs that were streamed, where we had very low health going into the extract, if any at all. Besides that, something else that changed was the loadout, as I ran Hell Auto Pistol and 2 turrets instead of 1 mine deployer. I would argue that changing those weapons was the reason that this level was made much easier, as it is ultimately more valuable to kill enemies outright than it is to stun them. Anyways, unique to this mission is of course that potato enemy, in addition to the nightmare babies at the end. They do not spawn from mothers, but rather on their own. As a result, they actually take up the normal spawn cap, which could hypothetically help if you wanted to activate the error alarm command that spawns them and the nightmare shooters. Otherwise, they're pretty identical to normal babies in HP and damage. As for the main objective, it's pretty doable, though you will find yourself low on bullets depending on your playstyle. It just involves you going through 4 zones, 2 of which have a ton of shadows and scouts, while the other 2 have full zone alarms and some scary red scans that you need to avoid. Something else though is that once you finish that, you'll enter this previously locked door, which leads to the unique mirrored room from A1. The way that the first team went is of course locked, so we extract from where they dropped in. It's a cool detail that I don't think Spiff ever acknowledged in his video. If you use mods to look at the lock zones between A1 and A2, you'll be severely disappointed to find out that the zones do not match their counterparts, at all. This is quite understandable. Anyways, I thought I'd at least fulfill your curiosity. Up next is what I'd consider the first hard stage of the rundown, and from here, I hadn't completed any of the following stages, so find out what changed in R8B3 Cause. Down in the familiar excavation environment, we have some harsh challenges to overcome, as usual. The first alarm here will set the stage. We have the choice between an easy alarm, a decently challenging alarm, and the hardest alarm yet. The benefits would be fog repellers, a fog turbine, and no infection fog, respectively. We'll be ordering the no infection fog plate, please. Placing a sniper turret here is probably the best thing you can do to prepare for the myriad of chargers and occasional hybrids. I'll be honest, it's mostly for the hybrids, as the Hell Rifle is mildly effective on them in comparison to the chargers. There's a subtle but really important positioning thing here, where you can force the bots to get a better angle on the enemies by just moving into them to reposition them. It's not often that we'll see direct examples like this, but it plays into how I move around to survive and clear hordes better. My bioscan booster was unfortunately not good enough, and the third wave spawned anyways, but no matter. We clear it with plenty of ammo to spare. After cleaning out the next zone and grabbing resources, we input the terminal command that removes infection fog, which will help immensely later. There's no disinfect anywhere on the map, so any infection you would get is permanent. The goal for this mission is to do a terminal uplink on 1 terminal, but most of the mission is just getting there, in addition to a really hard secondary objective. Heading back to the entrance zone, we still need to unlock the main Apex door via terminal command. The door to that terminal is this way, opening into a zone full of breathable fog. We have another alarm to complete here, though it's a lot easier on account of the doors we're able to close. So let's move on to the part where we've magically cleared that and done the command to open that door. A checkpoint is coming up, and once again, it's really well placed for us to abuse. I know there's some checkpoint purists who would never use them, understandably, but to that, I say that I'm only here to prove the possibility of beating these levels. I'll fully admit though that it helped a lot in clearing the upcoming secondary objective. With that, can you guess what's next? The secondary objective, of course. Cordoned off to the side, we need to run through 4 zones and collect 10 GLP items spread throughout. A total of 12 can be found, with 3 in each zone, but with how big every zone is, it's really easy to miss one. Oh, of course, I forgot to mention the error alarm that's going to start upon opening the door. The wiki states that the alarm consists of 5 chargers / flyers / big chargers every 35 seconds. Typically, we'll see chargers, but the threat of big chargers is always worth keeping an eye on. My first attempt during the winning session went something like this. What if there was just no error alarm? What if nothing spawned? Wouldn't that be fun? As always, the difficulty comes from how slow it can be for one person to search every locker. Having even 2 people to clear each room makes this way easier. Secondarily to that though, is the mild amount of sleepers present in most rooms. Ammo will burn away very quickly from this, and it'll be the second highest priority while searching for the GLPs. Oh, what a line. Kill the one guy, man. So unnecessary. Oh my god, I'm running into it. Damn! Kill him! One guy! First zone, I only managed to find 2 out of the 3, though I apparently did open the locker that had the 3rd one right here. The reason why we want to find as many as possible is because the error alarm will end after collecting the 10th GLP, so the sooner we get them all, the better. I managed to find the 3 in this zone for a total of 5. We're faced with a slight bump in the road in the form of this class 3 alarm door. It's an easy and fast alarm to be fair, though the purpose of it is to put a bigger dent in our resources, and the bots were already running low halfway in. Just hit the one fucker. What do you mean I missed that? What? Shots 1 to 5, clearly missed. Dude, what is your problem? Pretty sure you fucking have ammo too. I found the 3 in this 3rd zone, which is great, but we were getting stretched very thin at this point. Alright, you're... Whoopsie. It's like the worst option, by the way. We have another class 3 alarm to handle, with very little ammo and health left over. I got it. No way. I was like, there's no way. I was landing those though. Where was the ammo? A valiant attempt, I must say, and it proves the potential of clearing that objective blindly, provided you find the necessary items fast enough. Now, with the knowledge of where most of the GLPs were, I could hopefully clear each zone faster and save resources along the way. This is the checkpoint abuse I mentioned, and it's pretty valid to critique as cheating, but I'm not about to say no to a built-in mechanic, however broken that mechanic may be. The only problem I would encounter though is literally not remembering where every GLP was, so the game had that going for it. My second attempt was thwarted on the first alarm door due to some poor timing and skill issues. Oh my god, so much damage all at once. They're doing nothing to prevent any of this. Third time's the charm. I thankfully remembered where most of the important items were this time around. Getting to the second alarm, you'll notice we had much more ammo going into it, which all but guaranteed that we had enough time to find the last GLPs. There is just one more problem I haven't mentioned yet. I know, that's a fucking day. I was just praying that I would be able to find what I need in this first room so that I could focus on killing the tank. They did a box here too. That's it. There was also a bit of luck in having him spawn behind me, which let me focus on singling him out. We got this. You got this. Okay, we got him. Combat music was still going after this, and a little investigation revealed that it would continue indefinitely, on account of an entirely stuck enemy inside the walls. Not a major problem, thankfully. With a lot of resources to grab, we should be just fine going into the main objective. I was admittedly nervous though, because if I died here, I'd have to go back and do the secondary all over again. We arrive at the unique tower asset, containing the terminal that we must uplink from. Before we can do that, we have to unlock the terminal with a random 4-letter word, the letters to which are found on 4 different terminals. Hypothetically, we only need 1 or 2 letters to guess the rest of the password, and that seems to be somewhat intentional from the dev's perspective. The plan will be to enter this north door, which contains 2 letters instead of the singular letters from the other doors. All we have to do is endure an error alarm of chargers and find the terminal 2 zones away to shut it off. Should be easy enough, right? This isn't an alarm, is it? I swear to fucking god if it's an alarm. A class 3 diminished alarm stands in our way, and as quick as it is, we could easily get overwhelmed here. Alright, I mean it's not that hard, but I was still worried for my boys. Once we've turned off the error alarm, we can start guessing the password with our 2 letters, LA. Slaw? A very weird one. Slat? I don't know if that's even a word. Slay. Fuck. Clan, like the KK. I eventually just looked up the list of 4-letter words in this game. Flaw. Did I miss something? I did. Oh my god, it's flaw. Finally, we can do the main objective. It's a terminal uplink atop this tower, with 10 total verifications that we have to enter in, the second highest in any mission. The problem comes from the fact that we're stuck up here in this cramped space, so the bots will melee any enemies that manage to climb up because of their mechanics. With a combination of chargers, strikers, and flyers, we'll want to place turrets at both potential spawn points, alongside all the mines we can find on doors. With 3 turrets plopped down, no meta packs in the bot's hands, and an ammo pack in mine, I got started. Gotta play out of my fucking mind. By that I mean I just have to type in numbers and words. The complicated thing about this objective is the fact that we don't have the best sightlines on enemies, at least if we're going for Pierce. That's what sucks about the door we opened, being barely visible from where I can stand, so we hope for enemies to spawn towards where we came from instead. Don't mind Dada down here, he's just getting his steps in. Last one. Fucking moron. Pretty flawlessly, we managed to clear the objective, and now we got a GTFO, on account of the medium-sized error alarm. That's a fuck ton of enemies, oh my god. Holy shit, what the fuck is this, surge alarm ass? It was not this intense last time. Once I killed enough enemies, I started running past them and hoping for the best. Extraction isn't too far from here, so if you must solo hold due to the bots dying, you've still got a decent chance. Hey guys, come on. Feels good. Okay, that's not as hard as I thought it was. Overall, easier than I expected after playing it a long time ago. It's a fairly straightforward stage with a few different strategies that can work. The 2 zones I didn't enter have their own challenges, consisting of annoying spitters in one door and a tank that aggroes instantly from the other. Opening more than one door makes our turrets less effective during the uplink, for obvious reasons. As an alternative, you could instead guess the password for the terminal to just leave the entrance door open. On a practice run where I was just doing the main only, I figured I would try the same passwords that Astral Spiff had during his run. Shoot. True. What? No way! It was indeed true. The chances of guessing any password like this is absurd, let alone the fact that it was the same level in both cases. If you're truly struggling with this objective, you could open the non-error alarm doors to eventually guess the password on the terminal. Then from there, do the error alarm door, gain access to the deactivate alarms command, start the uplink, and then input the command for a free win. It's honestly not that hard with the bots, and considering T-Nenfi did this completely solo, it's a pretty viable strategy. I also learned during this level that if a charger or any enemy punches you near a lock, they will also hit said lock. I couldn't replicate it, but they also managed to break an open door in a similar fashion, which is more than likely a glitch. That's all there is to say about that stage. We're moving on to R8B4 Insurrection. If any level tests the definition of bots only, it's this one. I would go as far as to say this is the hardest level to complete, bots only, without using any form of cheese such as long kiting, as we'll find out later. For now, our objective is to move through each zone until we get to the bulkhead hub, where we'll do the secondary objective. If you'll pardon my language, that's where shit hits the fan. We have a lot of unique terminal commands to utilize, starting with one in this first zone. It starts a traveling team scan that isn't very threatening on its own. However, it will walk us into infection fog if we don't input another command here, subsequently lowering the fog to safe levels. The rest of the alarm is free as a result. I want to set the stage for this level's strategy by saying that we need to leave as many resources as possible around the map, including a one-use health pack in this first zone. It'll be very helpful later. The next two zones are your usual sneaking zones where we'll do our best to save on ammo. Tying into this is an optional blood door, leading into an important resource zone. Besides the baby strikers, there's a few nightmare enemies and giants to deal with, so be wary of them. Once I clear out all the sleepers in the blood door zone, I find out exactly where the health is in addition to the disinfect pack, but leave them inside of their respective containers to prevent the bots from picking them up. We'll be back for them. Continuing forward in the mission, there's a class 5 alarm that isn't too bad with funneling. Perhaps it's easiest to reveal now, but we want to save the doors here for when we long kite some enemies later. Once the alarm ends, a mother spawns, and boy is she just the worst enemy. That's the worst fucking spot to fight a mother, and she's being a shithead. Wonderful. The next step starts from this unique zone. There's a terminal that's once again locked. The password is way easier to grab though, being in one of two side zones with some nightmares and zoomer scouts. Because the other zone is optional, it functions as a resource zone, which is great for us. The bots will be low on ammo soon enough. Unlocking the terminal reveals to us a command that, yeah, of course starts an alarm. What else would it be? This T-scan does the same thing as the last one, where it tries to go into infection fog. There's now 3 terminals that each subsequently lower the fog while we fight some strikers and their nightmare counterpart. Heading back to the scan, I get to do a trick that's not necessary at all, but cool to do regardless. The T-scan walks through 3 different triggers that each spawn various enemies, namely hybrids, flyers, and snatchers. We can avoid all of that by just pushing the scan through the rectangular trigger as displayed here. The bots can't trigger it, which makes it even easier using them. Then we just circle around and continue the scan. I did say there were 3 triggers, which we would have to do the same thing for, however the 2 after this only spawn if you hit the first trigger, so we're in the clear. It was at this point that I grabbed some ammo packs for the bots, seeing as they had nothing left. We gain access to a checkpoint here, which I was really hoping I wouldn't have to use. This is where we can start the secondary objective, and thusly, the rest of the level. For the main objective, we need to take this data sphere to extraction, so we place it by the main door for easy grabbing. We then preload the main objective scan, something I never knew you could do until watching T-Nenfi's true solo run, and then start the secondary objective. It's a glorified reactor shutdown, only different in the command we have to enter. A single door is usable to block enemies from coming in, so we mine it and place some turrets around there. All of the extra resources that I've set up throughout the mission will come to a head here, as after the reactor shutdown, an error alarm of 3 nightmares every 20 seconds will initiate. If that sounds insane, it kind of is, and that's not even the worst of it. Infection fog will start rising, bringing me down to low health. So let's begin, and I'll talk about it as we go. Here we go. Entering the command starts a team scan, and then it creates a unique 25-way cluster scan throughout the room, also known as a Mega Cluster Surge Alarm. We'll want to finish this as fast as possible. The bots will help immensely with this, but you have to bear in mind that once a bot locks onto a scan, they will refuse to do other scans until that one is finished. So I'm keeping a real close eye on them while circling the room. After finishing the last scan, we clear out the stragglers and get going to grab the bulkhead key one room over. There's some resources in here, but all I wanted was this 4-use ammo pack in my hands. Heading back through the rising fog, we finish the main objective scan out of convenience, but then we keep heading towards the entrance zone. Because we did the secondary, there's now a command on the first terminal that lowered fog, which would lower the fog again. For the low price of some ammo packs, this is extremely helpful. Then, on the way back to the main, we can finally grab everything in the resource zone, disinfecting entirely and healing back up. This is the easy part of our strategy, but starting with opening the main objective door, a new error alarm will begin, sending 2 giants and some smalls every 10 seconds. That sounds even more insane, I hear you say, but a very key detail about how that specific alarm works is that it can't send the wave again unless you've cleared some of the enemies. Basically, it spawn caps itself, even though the normal spawn cap is still 25. Seemingly, this also applies to the nightmare waves, and they will be blocked until space is cleared up. So, what's the game plan then? Well, using our bots, we'll clear the first zone of the main objective, since there's a lot of sleepers within. Once we do that, I'll get ready to kill the bots and set up the spawn cap by only killing the small enemies and leaving the giants alive. Once we have just 3 giants, the only thing that can spawn is more giants, up to 5 or 6, and then nothing else will spawn. The thing with giants is that they're one of the easiest enemies to long kite. As in, they fall far behind you if you just sprint away from them, and we have a really long path that we can run. The biggest problem is that they can still kill me very easily, and I'd have to be extremely careful in setting this up. That's part of why I have the bio tracker, to be able to constantly ping them and see them, as the bots will be dead 90% of the time after this. Now it's time to put the plan in action, starting by clearing the zone of sleepers. Yeah, seems that shooting the bots won't be necessary. With a ton of enemies surrounding me at this dead end, I figured it was over. Two more giants spawned right in the escape path as well. Somehow, I managed to weave my way through all of that, but at 23 health, giants can one-shot me, so even one slip-up would spell doom for me. I began running towards the entrance zone so that I could loop the enemies and clean up the shooters. Then 2 more giants spawned, in front of me, forcing me to double back. My plan after all that was to try making progress by entering the next zone, but I had forgotten it had a team scan, and the giants were closing in quick. Crazy. Okay, enough with the clenchers. I finally started doing the normal strategy, where I'd run to the entrance zone, loop the giants there, and then shut this door on the way back, forcing them to walk a slightly longer path. Each loop, I'd have time to do a little bit before killing the bots again to ensure they wouldn't kill the giants. The first step was to grab a cell deep in one zone and plug it in. Overall, not too hard if you play it safe, as you get plenty of time to drop the cell and run past the giants. After 2 or 3 loops, I plugged it in. I had grabbed some health during this time, and it came in real handy when I got hit on 2 occasions. No way you hit that. No way. An idiot. I would need the health for something else coming up, though. Beyond the generator door is a single mother by herself. Awesome. I love single moms. I dedicated a loop to killing her as I wanted the most amount of time to do so. I appreciate that so much. I just have to say that of all the places she could be, being at the top of this staircase was so bad for the bots. I just knew they were going to die, low health or not. Anyways, that's the last major hurdle to clear. There's one more blood door for our mine deployer to hit, and then we just gotta move some shit around. This is like the third mine I used throughout the mission, and it's the main reason I even brought it along. We just have to grab a cell in this zone, plug it in, and then bring the data sphere over and extract with it. Doing one last loop, I made sure to shut every door I could to buy as much time as possible for extraction. And it was just enough time.
This shit was so ass to play, man. It was so ass. Fuck that level.
That was a long one, at 2 hours and 18 minutes. If I was more optimized, I could have probably saved like 15 or 20 minutes, but so be it. I did it. Something I didn't realize at the time was that I could have killed giants if need be. They're prioritized to spawn over any small enemies, so if I just picked off any in my way, I could have been a lot safer. It's worth saying once again that this was not my own strategy, as it was well established that you could safely spawn cap the way that I did. I did come up with the pathing, but by no means was I trailblazing, and I'm sure others have done similarly. Frosty did it before me, and TNNP did it true solo. Will I ever do this level without cheese? No. Quite frankly, I think it's probably impossible without hours and hours of attempts, and I don't got that dog in me to do that. Let's get back into a simpler level. R8C2 Unplugged. We're in the final stretch of levels here. Give it to me straight, what's so hard about this one? There is a severe lack of resources to be found, more so that they give you just enough for you to survive. I took some boosters to mitigate this problem, but let it be known that if I was just better, I wouldn't have needed them. Anyways, to start off, our goal is to transport the data sphere to a big old doohickey to extract a microdrive. That microdrive can actually be found in the same zone on a shelf, and it does literally nothing if you pick it up. This part is pretty straightforward, and once we've inserted it, we can leave to go do the more important objective, receive an MRI. The next thing to do is clear out a zone filled with more chargers. We really want to save on resources here so that we can potentially grab them later. Take no chances, you know?
Okay, man. Okay, man.
Come on, dude. I'll admit I didn't think there were that many charger giants, and I shouldn't have walked up like I did. In that same room, we'll have a class 6 alarm to do.
Okay, dude, you fucking sent a charger giant at me immediately.
Besides that random charger giant, it's a piece of cake. We enter the next zone to drop off the microdrive to the team that's busy gambling an R8C1 before attending to a blood door. If we're lucky, we can avoid shooting here and not wake up the enemies inside of it. Clearing most of the zone melee only, we have a relatively hard alarm to beat, especially because we're trying to save on resources. It's a class 7 in a medium room, so the scans thankfully go by very fast, as opposed to something like the class 8 at the end of R4D2.
And we're good.
A checkpoint marks the difficulty spike in the mission, making it a fairly good checkpoint. Before the door opens, we've got to run away from this room to prevent the screaming tank from waking up more enemies. I think as long as you're out of the room, it doesn't matter if the bots are still there or not. The enemy shouldn't wake up. Now that we've singled out the tank, we take him over to this area to get a really good angle on him. If we had to kill all the chargers inside of the tank room, we'd likely incur a lot of damage, so it's a nice way to make things easier for us. The funky MRI doodad sits in here, waiting to be charged with 4 cells. There's a very linear path that we must traverse to collect each of the 4 cells, all containing unique challenges to do so. So without further ado, cell 1, the easiest cell of course, requiring us to get through a blood door, then sneak through a double scout zone to obtain the cell.
Oh my god, you almost fucked that for me.
The door over here can then be seafoamed for the upcoming alarm.
Not in the door. Oh my fucking god, man. What is your problem? What is your problem?
I didn't want to foam that door anyways. Plugging in the cell starts a class 4 alarm. With only 2 potential spawn points, this is relatively free. Fighting enemies on this staircase is fairly risky, but we were lucky enough this time around as the bots eventually unloaded their guns. That's Cell 1 complete. Cell 2 is located through the opposite security door, being another blood door, of course. We clear out the next zone, filled with nightmares and hybrids. There's thankfully no challenge in collecting the cell here. No, that's saved for when we plug it in. An error alarm will initiate, and we'll be forced to make a run back through that zone to reach the next security door. We'll find a terminal within that shuts off the error alarm. In order to set up for this, I put some sentries by choke points, and very particularly mined this door here. The idea being that if enemies spawned in front of me, they'd break the door and hit the mine. And if they spawned behind me, I could pick up the mine and place it on the other side, where we needed to go. So let's plug that bad boy in.
Run. Come on in, boys. Come on in. And that would be why we put a mine there. Okay, man.
This zone, as small as it is littered with chargers and giant chargers, so I played it very patiently before making a dash for the terminal that shuts off the alarm. Very conveniently, this door can be mined, killing some of the enemies that spawned in behind us. That marks the second cell complete. Cell 3 is right next door for the taking, being in an awful one-room zone that has smalls, 2 charger scouts, and a very sleepy tank. The bots offer their amazing delivery service and grab the cell from deep within, completely nullifying the challenge here. Mind you, there's still some resources in here, and I did my best to grab them before backing out. Plugging in Cell 3 will shut the lights off, and subsequently start a Class 3 alarm of shadows. On account of the 2 shadow giants who spawn right behind you, I would describe this alarm as more of an ambush than anything else. Without the surprise factor, this alarm blows over easily. Cell number 4 proves to be the hardest, both in obtaining it and in the final battle that follows it. A thick blood door is the smallest hurdle in the process, spawning in a variety of enemies, in addition to the sleeping shadows behind it. The cell is in the next zone over, filled with chargers instead. I think the cell has a chance to spawn in one of 2 rooms, but we were lucky enough to have it spawn in the first room so that I could grab it with a bot. I wanted this because you can input the cell to turn the lights back on, before exploring that zone and getting its resources. The main threat in getting those resources is the 2 charger scouts, really. With that, we prepare to get an MRI done. There's now 4 open doors in this room, and while the chance of enemy spawns are somewhat weighted, it's still random, meaning that turrets could get less value if preemptively placed. I went with that option as opposed to reactively placing them. The challenges we face for the final fight include 1 tank, 1 snatcher, then 2 more later, and a fuck ton of enemies who seek to overwhelm us. There's 3 scans that we must complete to finish the level, starting with the room scan with purple qualities, a big team scan, and a small one in the MRI. With mines at each door, I started the MRI. I wanted to focus the tank immediately, but right behind it spawned the 2 big chargers, so my focus had to go to that.
I'm glad the boys perfectly ignored the tank.
After that though, the tank sat in a really bad spot, and I ended up taking too long to kill him as the other enemies closed in. Then it all started falling apart.
Alright man, I'm done. Oh shit. No way, I fucking didn't see him. Oh shit, we're fine. Oh god. Guys, get out of there, get out of there. What are you going down? What are you going down there for? What the fuck is... Oh, they're trying to get in the scan. All of them.
Connection terminated.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Connection terminated.
Fuck this game. Oh my god. You're kidding me, man.
Connection terminated.
The biggest problem that I realized in hindsight was the fact that scans 2 and 3 were just normal team scans, meaning that I had time to just run away and come back to finish the scans. It would have been perfectly viable, and I maybe could have just ignored the tank altogether. Round 2 will have to suffice.
Okay, you're such a piece of shit. One more time.
This time, everything kinda went right, and I played it much safer, sometimes unintentionally.
I'm fucking hitting the wall, man. The hitbox for that thing is so massive. Wow. Thank you, boys. Oh my god. What a fucking banger weapon this is. Oh. Thank you. It's so beatable, but god damn it.
Indeed, it is so beatable. The snatchers at the end are very deceptive with all the enemies that mask their arrival. With only one set of eyes, I had such a hard time finding them in a sea of red triangles. Besides that, there's not too many things worth mentioning in a bot's only run. It's just a skill check of sorts. I do want to point out something unrelated, which is that the connection between C1 and C2 is even more dubious in A1 and A2. If you look out of bounds in C2, it turns out that the door just leads to the void. However, in C1, it is very close to being the correct room type. I know it doesn't really matter whether or not it's accurate, but it is funny that when they got to this level, they did not care if you looked out of bounds. That's what I choose to believe anyways. There's only 2 more levels, and without a doubt, they will be the hardest levels in the rundown. If there was any point where I was willing to give up on this challenge, I was far beyond that. I was motivated to see this through to the end, no matter how long it would take me. I knew these levels were beatable completely solo, so I had to prove to myself that this was something I could achieve, alongside my trusty bots. R8D2 Slaughter. This level is pretty well paced, featuring unique challenge after unique challenge. I had a good amount of practice with each part of the mission, but it was time to put that to the test. Also, I stole this weapon combo from TNNP once again. What are they gonna do, watch my video and call me a doo-doo head? I don't think so. Clearing all the nightmares from this first zone, we're left with a single scout that we have to alert to kill. Conveniently, there's a door we can mine to deal with the fallout, so we give her the best shot possible and run to shut the door. All scouts during this mission will spawn nightmares, which would be more consequential if they didn't front load every scout in the next zone. There's 2 nightmare scouts, and a zoomer scout, and a tank in that zone. This one is in an unreachable location for good measure. We have 2 security doors that we need to open and get stuff from, and one of those is a blood door, something that should surely wake up the scouts and the tank. Or does it? Clearing the path to the previous zone, we can just run from the blood door and get to this room so that we can use our guns. The bots will unfortunately get stuck on sleeping enemies here, but besides that, there's only a small chance that something goes wrong, consequently alerting the tank and 2 scouts. With this being the first part of the mission though, resets are very forgiving. We enter a command to lower the easiest class 12 alarm in the game to a formidable class 4. Very importantly, the other zone contains a bunch of seafoam nades that we'll take with us to the secondary objective. This is our only source at the moment, and boy will it come in handy. For that class 4 alarm, I tried to reactively use a seafoam nade from the bot, And might I say, the results speak for themselves. It's after this that we can start the secondary objective, our next major challenge. The consequence of this objective is that it adds in infection fog, where we otherwise would just see no fog, but that's not the end of it. Once we progress to the last zone, there's a terminal that gives us 3 options, very similar to what's presented at the start of R8B3. 3 different alarms that lower the fog a bit, a lot, and entirely. Contrary to what we chose in B3, we will not be doing the hardest alarm. I'm sure it's possible to do in this circumstance of bots only, but a tank and a snatcher in addition to a ton of nightmare enemies and hybrids is just too much for a class 9. The second option of fog removal, a lot, is more than enough to get through the mission. It still sends a ton of nightmare enemies, so to prepare, we seafoam both of these doors and mine this one. We'll also use some fog repellers during this class 7 alarm, as the fog level rests on the ground floor of this room.
Fucking tree is in my way.
This is where it hurts the most to have the scattergun as opposed to the hell rifle, as it takes forever to reload and shoot again. In addition, I mentioned that I would go back to change the bots' weapons if I could, and this level is the clearest example where burst cannons would make a big difference.
I'm fucking reloading, man. Cool. Dude, there's so fucking many. Oh my god.
Now that we've finished the secondary objective, we should have no trouble progressing the main, especially with such a convenient checkpoint on hand. The next major challenge involves a sort of Warden Protocol type of alarm. It's not called that in-game, but the comparison is a decent one, as we'll be running back and forth to some terminals to enter commands, and then holding our ground as we wait for doors to open. Before I explain further, we have to clear out a room filled with hybrids and a tank. I wanted to sneak kill the hybrids here, but I stupidly set up the tank to be long-range aggroed in an attempt to ensure that he wouldn't do exactly that.
Oh shit. You're fucking kidding me. Okay man, you did not have to give me a fucking health fact.
One of 3 terminals is in this room, so if we didn't clear it first, we'd have to kill a tank while an alarm is going on. Fun fact, the security door here actually doesn't open unless you've either done the secondary objective, the optional class 12 alarm from earlier, or until you've already begun the Warden Protocol event. It's a very strange condition, but it's a good way to sort of force you into doing the secondary in some capacity to make this easier. When I streamed this mission, I was doing the main only and experienced this firsthand. And boy howdy, it was bad.
Oh hey, the enemy's already here. Shit, that's rough. And 2 bots down.
Anyways, Warden Protocol time. I recommend holding onto a 4-use ammo pack to make things easier, in addition to being as stocked up as possible. We have to get to 3 different terminals while waiting for a door to open, entering a command on each of them and doing their scans.
They are coming in fast.
During this, enemies will be hounding us and attempting to stop us. We have to backtrack a bit to reach this second terminal, but the timing is absolutely splendid for handling the snatcher on the way. While we head back towards the door for the 3rd terminal, I'll explain the consequences of not doing this, as it is entirely optional. Tank Room Terminal would fittingly send a tank and some nightmares, and then a second wave later of 21 strikers, and then the other terminals send their respective waves, consisting of either 20 nightmare strikers or 20 strikers. All of these waves vary in timing, but the short of it is that for how easy it is to do the commands, we'd be very dumb to not do this. After another minute or so, the door opens and we encounter the second half of this protocol.
Look man, I know there's a box there, please.
This mostly consists of a defensive section where we have to wait for a second door to open in the dark. I get real cozy in this room, but I knew there would be a snatcher at some point, so I waited to shut the door until I could kill it. Around this point, ammo will start to be a problem if you didn't hold on to a pack like I did, but it should be enough after that. The lights come on and the next zone opens up. We need to find a keycard now while killing the latent sleepers in here. Fuck. I didn't know this at the time, but the key is most likely always going to be in this room where I found it.
Fucking... God, man. I'm trying to put a mine down.
Getting to the next zone, we make a mad dash for the terminal in this room to put an end to the chaos. Breathe a sigh of relief. There's only like 2 or 3 more hectic sections to get through. For the second time in GTFO, we have to jump down to progress, with no way of backtracking. As a result, we stock up on all remaining resources and watch as the bots take their own path to this area. It's designed to allow both enemies and bots to reach you, should you choose to leave some alive. Making sure that we have a full set of fog repellers at least, we can take this second checkpoint and begin the boss fight. The mother of all mothers. Using the scattergun here as host is unfortunately the best method to kill her, but if the bots had burst cannons, man, this fight would have been even easier. The strategy is mostly reliant on the bots killing the small guys while you tear down the boss, but I took care to balance my ammo usage as best I could.
Holy shit, they're actually efficient as hell. Dude, what the fuck? They're like, I don't have any mods on. They are fucking cracked right now. Alright, he's dead. Awesome. Huge. Holy shit, they have no health. Okay, that was the one thing I was a little concerned about.
That's another challenge down. 2 more to go. There's another zone with sleepers that we clear with ease, and then we walk into this very unique one-room zone. We need to set up for the dual scan alarm that takes place here. There's some metal doors that can be closed right outside here if we want to stall some nightmares, but those doors will be profoundly important for the final challenge. So instead, we open up this door to funnel the enemies. I'll admit it's probably better to open the top door here, but hindsight is 20/20. With turrets placed at the security door, we enter the command to begin the dual scan. Of the two, we want to do this traveling scan first. I'm not sure how it works behind the scenes, but just imagine that there's 2 different alarms occurring at once, with one tied to each scan. The enemies that spawn from this one include smalls, nightmare strikers, and hybrids, while the scan in the middle just spawns flyers every once in a while. Pick your poison, coughing baby or hydrogen bomb. Sorry. Okay, that's still a huge exaggeration. This alarm isn't too tough when you're aware of what's happening. Just bear in mind that Hackett won't get scans off while he's being forced to move. We throw a foggy down to the middle and hold out against the small waves of flyers, in addition to one last wave of nightmares and hybrids. It's basically free once you've made it here.
Okay, I still don't understand this wave though. Why is there still another wave after all that?
While the strategy is already the best one, I do want to point out that we have no choice but to do this scan first, since the bots lock onto it before they can lock onto the middle scan. It's actually quite lucky that this isn't harder. With that done, we just have to murder 2 Schaefers. Long story.
Matter wave collapse. That's what I don't give a fuck about that. What the? Oh God, what have they done? No, let me out.
We could wait for there to only be 1 guilty Schaefer, but we've got places to be. Heading back to the dual scan room, there's a whole basement area for us to dive into. Fun fact, enemies and bots cannot usually travel down here. Beats me how Hackett followed me in this clip. My assumption is that they didn't want issues to come up during the dual scan, so they avoided it by doing this. Anyways, we wish the Schaefers well and get ready for the finale. Our objective is to transport this matter wave projector all the way up the stairs and a few rooms over. Upon reaching the midway point of the stairs, tons of nightmare strikers are going to start beating us down, but way more importantly, 2 snatchers will intercept me. In order to deal with them, we'll first set up the doors in this room to funnel the spawning enemies up here, since otherwise the enemies will be directly in our way. We'll also shut all the doors in the next room to stall further, and try to get seafoam on this door.
What even, man? Admittedly, you could use it on the bottom door too. I just never tried. Besides that, place mines all along their pathways and on both doors, in addition to putting turrets around here. The goal is to stall as best we can once we get into extraction. With a foolproof plan, I put it into action.
Reload the gun, reload the gun. Shit. I'll admit, I sorta panicked here, out of concern for the snatchers grabbing me. This mistake spelled my doom, and I would not be able to recover the lost time or health from leaving the object on the other side of the door.
No way, man.
Fuck. Back to the checkpoint, before the mother and the dual scan. I did not get nearly as lucky with the boss fight and failed it a few times. The big thing though was that I wanted to make sure we had as much health as possible, and arguably that becomes the win condition here.
Fuck it, man.
As for what I would change on the second attempt, well, we're not going to close the door on the matter wave projector, that's for sure. The problem is that managing the snatchers can be frustrating, since there's two of them. If they both show up at once, great, use one scatter shot for each. It's a question of either reloading, picking the matter wave projector back up, or waiting for the next snatcher to arrive. I learned how important this was in a previous session where I did not in fact save a shot for both.
Oh, fuck off. There's two of them?
So with that in mind, I set up once more.
No, you're me, the shittier.
Matter wave projector time.
Can't believe he got down. Can't believe he got down. This is it. This is it. This is the one. There's so many fucking enemies, man. Hi guys. Hi guys. Any amount of fucking shooting. Crazy what a bit of side strafing does.
We did it! No way! Oh my fucking god. 1 second away. The R8D2 curse strikes again. Even in the most optimal circumstance, I still couldn't make it. It's a brutal extract, probably the hardest in the game as far as I'm aware. And then to reload a checkpoint that's like 20 minutes out from this, well, I was determined to make the most of it. We fight the mother, again. And again.
Just call it there. Do it again, do it again.
I needed more health.
Alright.
Perfect. Dual scan now and fast.
You're me.
Set up once more. Look at this distance. Surely. You can't put seafoam on this door. It's impossible. And last but not least, matter wave projector time.
We need to get there.
I did it. There we go, guys. That's it. It's over. What the fuck was that? I couldn't have scripted that better myself.
That's really funny. That's really funny. I didn't know that was a glitch that could happen with checkpoints. I didn't know you could finish a level, but then go to the checkpoint anyways.
Easily one of the hardest stages for that extract alone. I could only feel relief at seeing the possibility of a full Rundown 8 completion. I think I can leave the fun facts for another day. You already know what's coming, don't you? Feel free to skip ahead to the level, but I've got a little story that I want to tell. Something that should give context to this accomplishment of mine. I've been playing games since I could form memories, and I truly mean that. I think the first clear memory I have was one where I woke up next to my dad and brother playing Super Mario World in my room. Wouldn't you know it, that's one of my favorite games. I remember playing it like crazy, usually on new save files since I don't think our SNES could actually save games.
Regardless, I could only ever beat the game by taking the shortcut Star Road path to Bowser's castle, because on the normal path, there was a really hard auto-scroller that I could never beat. It felt cheap to me to never overcome that challenge, and eventually I moved on from that game to many others. Years later, I went on to beat Dark Souls 2 for the first time, and that feeling of accomplishment enraptured me. It was the first time I felt like my skill triumphed over a game, having improved over the course of many deaths. I then got my shit handed to me in Dark Souls 1, but I could confidently say that maybe I was in fact a gamer. Celeste was the next step in that cycle, and after clearing the whole game front to back, they released the Farewell DLC. I thought I was good at that game, but that level really taught me a lot about myself, through all the overconfidence and hubris of mine. It was very clear to me that no matter what the situation was, there was always room to improve. Being naturally talented at anything is never the full story, and you would never hear about some people if they didn't keep trying to improve. After a good 2 days of grinding that last level of Celeste, particularly the final room, I managed to beat it. With this newfound goal of constant improvement at the craft, I would go on to beat numerous challenging games, and in the middle of that, I got really good at competitive FPS games. In that environment, handling loss after tough loss with elegance is a skill, and a game like GTFO is primed to test you over and over. I could go on forever about how I felt playing this brutal cooperative game by myself, but I thought what better way to end a series like this than by showing that I had learned something about myself, that maybe it wasn't just a big waste of time. Without further ado, R8E2 release. With this being the hardest level, there is a lot to cover, and quite honestly, I'm going to be skipping over some of the lesser details for the sake of time. I could really talk forever about what I learned playing this level, but the focus here is on the experience I had getting through E2, from the first PB to the last. Right away, you'll notice the 1 minute timer emblazoned on our forehead. Contrary to E1, we do not want this timer to run out, yet. Thankfully, this is not the world's shortest level, and we just need to find every terminal and run a command on it, which extends the timer by several minutes. If the timer runs out, we're all but guaranteed to die from the nightmare surge alarm that begins. Step 1 to beating this level is simply knowing where each terminal is in every zone, barring the secondary objective as they don't contain the command. Step 2 is getting through the next 5 zones, filled to the brim with scouts, normal enemies, and boss enemies. 3 of those zones are respawn zones for good measure, but we're not as worried about that currently. What's more important is that we can make it to the first alarm of the level, known as the Nightmare 6 alarm. It's in the 4th zone of the 5 I mentioned, and we'll need plenty of time on the clock in addition to ammo once we get there. So let's go ahead and get there before I tell you more about the level. Zone 1 of 5 contains a mother and several scouts, in addition to the usual enemies. Right away, we're going to have to strategize on how to be fast, since we don't have infinite time. The simplest solution is to just shoot rooms as soon as we know they're shootable. This room is a perfect example of a room we should always shoot, as it is directly on the path to the next zone, and it would take too long to sneak through. Not to mention, if there was a scout in here, I don't think you're walking past him easily. As far as the less obvious cases, well, every room should contain a certain combination of enemies, whether it be the mother and some shadows, or a scout and 2 giants, or anything else. You start to get a sense of what's in a room as soon as you see certain enemies together, and it's based on that info that you can decide if it's worth clearing the room or not. One last thing I'll mention is how the bots help during this section. You know, given that they're at the center of this challenge. The short answer is that they don't help much. The reasoning comes down to the fact that we need to shut doors behind us just in case I need to shoot, and I don't have the time to make sure the bots follow me everywhere. Thankfully, they very consistently make their way to my room, but it's usually after I've already cleared a room by myself. Let it be understood that we still want to save ammo as best we can, so we won't shoot every room. Zone 1 is easy to get through, but Zone 2 adds a few hurdles. Now there's a tank and a mother, in addition to 3 charger scouts and more invisible enemies. The shadows tend to catch you off guard, and without the bio-tracker in my hand, I have to go off of my faulty senses. It should go without saying, but we almost certainly can't afford to alert a scout, as the spawning enemies will probably wake up another scout, and the cycle just continues. As for the boss enemies, well, we can wake them up, but we only want to do it if we have to. More on that in a moment. The doors to Zone 3 and 4 are in this zone, with 4 being under emergency lockdown. We have to get to the terminal in Zone 3 to do a command that unlocks it. Zone 3 only contains a tank and a lot of scouts. It's also really spread out, so it's way easier and faster to sneak through rooms. On the other hand, finding the ammo pack in this zone is annoyingly inconsistent, in comparison to the other zones which are smaller. The first 4 zones have 1 ammo pack each, adding up to 10 uses total. The problem with this third zone is that it contains a lot of useless rooms that we never want to enter. But if the ammo pack spawns in any of them, well, we can either wish it goodbye or spend some precious time grabbing it, hopefully without alerting the room. It's not required to get all the ammo, but on my winning run, I did find all 4, so it is helpful to say the least. Once we've done the terminal command to unlock Zone 4, we backtrack through the same path we cleared, ideally saving time by running. This is the first time that a zone should respawn, if you killed the enemies of course. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but you'll take care as you head to the 4th zone's door, 1 room over. This room is the one room that you should clear every time, even if it has the tank or mother, or in the worst case, both. The security door houses a stealth scan that we'll want to clear as fast as possible, so any enemies left alive would slow us down. But there's a more important problem coming up. Zone 4. It contains 5 rooms, 4 scouts, 3 bots, 2 mothers, and 1 alarm. And 0 bitches. We have to clear out the first room ASAP by shooting. This is where we need to be very reactive to the threats in each room, as there could be 2 scouts, a fuck ton of enemies and a mother, or even 2 mothers in the same room. Almost all combinations are dangerous and potential run enders. It's no secret that the sawed-off shotgun is a better gun for mothers than the Hell Rifle, so as I made my way to this point, I very intentionally saved sawed-off ammo so that I could spam it in this zone. For the upcoming alarm, the Hell Rifle will do most of the work, so we can balance ammo there if need be. We do need to clear out 2 more rooms to set up for the alarm, so there's a high chance that we'll fight both mothers at some point, in addition to the myriad of small enemies present. It's a brutal challenge to say the least, and it was the first major hurdle for me to consistently clear. It would be a shame if there was another major challenge coming up. The Nightmare 6 alarm. The reason I thought this level was impossible bots only. This is single-handedly one of the hardest alarms in the entire game, not only because it sends Nightmare Strikers at an insane rate, but because of how long the alarm is. It takes a good 3 to 4 minutes to clear, presuming that you never down during the fight, as there's 3 purple scans that each take 50 seconds. It's an endurance test to put it mildly. We'll want to use any seafoam consumables that we grabbed from the first zone on the doorways, and then we'll make sure that these 2 doors are seafoamed. We'll of course mine this door, and then place our sniper turret looking down this hallway. As a recommendation from Frosty, I was told to leave this door open, and I'd say for weird reasons, it is ultimately helpful. Anyways, with that, we begin the alarm and get ready to refoam the door. The bots actually hold their ground really well during this alarm, provided they have good enough weapons, but importantly, they won't carry you. So when the enemies start to stream in, I need to be on my A game and kill a majority of the enemies. Reload. You might also notice that I didn't spend all of my seafoam during this. For a number of reasons, it can give diminishing returns to spend more than 2 or 3 loads, but I also wanted to make sure that I had some left over for the next zone, in case of emergency. Once the scans are finished, we make sure that there's no stragglers left over before continuing to Zone 5. Zone 5 marks the end of the respawn rooms, and we only have to worry about waking up the previous zone by shooting in this room. Subsequently, the challenge here is to clear the whole zone of enemies and prepare for the secondary objective with enough time on the board. I'll explain the overarching strategy in a bit as it relates to the timer, but we get about 12 minutes to accomplish this. What enemies are in the zone, you might ask? The first and only Nightmare Scout of the mission, 3 other scouts, a good amount of smalls, and a tank. It doesn't seem like much, but we need to stock up on ammo before initiating any big fights, and we need seafoam for at least one of the scouts, if not 3 of them. The time absolutely flies by as I set up each room to be cleared, but as long as we're somewhat efficient in doing this, the tank should be the only major problem. Thankfully, there's a somewhat decent room to fight him in once he's by himself, and the bots can truly shine here with the burst cannons if I'm lucky. If there weren't at least 5 tanks that we have to fight, I might have given the bots something other than the 3 burst cannons, but so be it. Once we've ransacked that zone of resources, we can move on to the hardest part of the mission, the reactor startup. Some of the most heartbreaking failures occurred here, and I'll showcase them while explaining what went wrong, before overcoming each hurdle. The overarching strategy that I stole originates from some community members who figured out how to true solo this mission, with cheese. While I'm aware that Frosty did not come up with the strategy entirely on his own, I want to emphasize that I was trying to copy what he did in his uploaded run, without knowing exactly how everything works. It all revolves around timing. The reactor startup is 3 waves long. Wave 1 sends your standard smalls, giants, and flyers. Wave 2 sends similar enemies, in addition to a full-blown tank. And Wave 3 trades out the smalls for way more nightmares, sends way more shadow giants in place of the normal giants, and 3 individual tanks. Of course, we'll have to get 3 codes in addition to that, but that's going to be the least of our problems, as we'll find out. This strategy will be familiar to veterans, but after stocking up on resources, we're going to wait until 1815 to start the reactor sequence. If you ever have the extra time like I did, I spend it by pinging ammo packs around the reactor room to grab later. Then we'll finish the scan within 2 or 3 seconds of 1815. The next step is to simply clear the waves of enemies. It's pretty easy to hold on the reactor itself, despite the fact that it's known for being one of the worst rooms to defend in usually. The bots still hold up well here, and clear a good chunk of the enemies as we set up lines. Once there's 47 seconds on the clock, I prepare to shoot the flyers as they spawn in. Sometimes I get it, other times I miss it. Either way, that leaves a few more smalls and a large wave of giants. The sniper turret I placed does its best, and we can call it for the first wave. This first door unlocks, and I proceed with the following code search. It's less of a code search and more of a mini gauntlet, as it's just a 1-room zone filled with 3 trap scans and a bunch of enemies, including a funny sleeping tank. I'll come back to the trap scans in a bit, but we need to kill everything in here, starting with the Zoomer Scout. The bots tend to stick while I retreat to the pillar room from earlier, but if all goes well, we hold our ground inside of this room. On this run, the tank got the dreaded triple kill. But with enough patience and time, I managed to land the final blow. With under 3 minutes remaining, I felt quite secure and restocked on resources while finding the code. As for the strategy at hand, it has everything to do with the big red trap scan right here. Contrary to the other scans that just spawn in a tank, this one uniquely takes us to a different arena where we must stay alive for a bit against nightmares. The idea being that it wastes our time and resources while the reactor continues counting down. But wouldn't it be funny if it helped us kill 3 or 4 birds with 1 stone? Well, you see, for some crazy reason, this trap scan incidentally cancels all alarms, similar to the command that we sometimes see. So with that in mind, what can we do with it? There's the obvious Nightmare Surge alarm timer at the top that we can cancel to effectively remove the time limit on this stage. But that's not all. There's a second Nightmare 6 alarm that's after the reactor that we can cancel, provided we start it before teleporting. And last but not least, while it won't cancel an entire reactor sequence, it can cancel 1 full wave. So that horrifying 3rd wave I mentioned with 3 tanks, we can mostly cancel it too. I never mentioned it, but we're supposed to carry the matter wave projector throughout most of the level. But if we just pick it up right at the beginning and then leave it there, it teleports with us from wherever it is. With this being the first time I made it to the reactor, I was determined to make the most of it. So now, we wait until the last 20 seconds or so to enter the code in to keep on track. Wave 2 will prove to be the toughest, in the event that we skip the 3rd wave anyways. It starts off being manageable, but right as the tank spawns in, we'll be dealing with a huge wave of giants, some smalls, and a large wave of flyers. I'll admit that I was not at all prepared to handle this wave on my first attempt, and I was kinda hoping for a miracle running around the reactor room. Hi, tank. That's awfully rude of you. Holy shit, they fucking throw everything at you right at the end. It was not at all deserved, but the bots managed to stay alive and killed most of the giants while I did this. And then I made it back into the pillar room to kill the tank once again. That wave is hectic to say the least, but after clearing it, I felt really good about my odds. We just needed to do another code search and then we could execute the strategy. This time it is a proper code search, with 3 close terminals and one that's really far away. The most we have to worry about is hybrids here, but they shouldn't be the end of us if we play it right. With ample time left, I made sure to stock up on resources before entering the code in as late as possible. After that, we full sprint to the second alarm door to pull it before running back to enter the trap scan. If everything goes correctly, we'll start the alarm, the third wave will begin, and the timer at the top will end while we're teleported. I was very nervous, but excited at the prospect of pulling this off. Oh. My only salvation was gone. The red scans were no longer here.
Oh, what did he do differently that I didn't do?
With nothing to do but accept my fate, I could only reflect on all the lucky moments I had leading up to this. So what went wrong? I thought I did everything correctly, but as it turns out, there's one teeny tiny detail I missed when I watched Frosty's run. For the door that contains the red scans, he specifically waits until there's 3 minutes left before opening it. For those who don't know, an event starts from doing this, where the lights go out every 18 seconds, before turning on for another 18. This is to allow you to run through the center of the room to get to the code. The event only triggers 10 times, or in other words, lasts for 3 minutes. If you enter the code in before the 3 minutes is up, the scans will stay forever, as opposed to my run where they were gone. And that is why I died. This run was the earliest run to make it here in a combined 40 hours of attempts, and unexpectedly so, I might add. I was already considering talking to Frosty to learn about the ins and outs of this level, but this failure was the impetus to do it sooner than later. He taught me a number of valuable strategies, ranging from small things like how hybrids take full back damage from the right side, to bigger things like the setup for the first alarm of the level. It was very helpful to say the least, but what followed was hours and hours of failures that almost never made it past the 5th zone, let alone to the alarm. I made a video that covered a majority of these failures if you want to see what not to do. But in that time, I became a machine that could clear everything before the reactor very consistently. It's time to move on to the next few runs, where I mostly knew what I was doing. Do the Class 6 alarm, clear Zone 5, set up and clear Wave 1, and then do the code search. There were a number of runs that failed this part, for good reason. You might find that strange since I managed to clear it so handily the first time, but remember that we have to clear a huge room of enemies and grab a code, in 3 minutes or less, rather than the advertised 5 minutes. This section was just really harsh, and unless I got lucky with the bots clearing the tank, I would have to play it safe by running back into the code room and jumping on the rafters. This is not intended, and I'll be referring to it as baby mode anytime I use it to kill enemies. Anyways, after practicing this section a ton, I was able to clear it semi-consistently in the given time limit, and we could move on to Wave 2. Wave 2 also proved its difficulty, and more so revealed to me that I did just get super lucky with the tank kill on my first run. Baby mode was a viable strat to clearing the enemies, but I wanted to find a decent strategy to clear it without doing this. What I came up with was spawn pushing the tank individually. He spawns after the wave of giants and by himself, and conveniently, there's a room full of breakable doors. If we walk forward one room from the reactor, we can push his spawn to those doors and force him to break the doors before getting to us, so long as we time it correctly. In conversating with a fellow bots-only player, he made a very obvious improvement to that strategy, which was to use my very full seafoam gun and reinforce the doors. I wish I would have thought of that sooner. Anyways, I was still not very prepared despite the practice. Tank came in, giants all came in, I went baby mode, barely survived the onslaught by myself. But the point is that I did survive, and with enough time, we could do the second code search and get another shot at the strategy. For realsies this time. Code input, alarm started, scan entered. Now we just have to survive for a bit, mostly by running around and parkouring. This is not the hard part to say the least, but on this run, I was particularly low on health.
Oh my god, no way. Get the revive, get the revive, get the revive, get the revive. Oh my god.
What follows is the teleport back, where we still have dozens of nightmares to kill, from both the reactor and the alarm I started.
at least one tank spawns. I don't really know what determines if all 3 spawn, or just the one in my case, but we need to clear everything as fast as possible. Also, because we have a scan to do, it blocks my ability to see how much time is left on the reactor, but I figured there was more than enough. As I was fighting the tank, the funniest thing happened.
What the fuck are you talking about? Where even?
A scout went off, somewhere in the respawn zone. As long as it didn't wake up a mom, I knew that I should be able to handle the extra enemies, or so I thought. Tank dead, now it's just a few more little guys.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
In the back of my head, I had remembered a small thing Frosty told me during our conversation, which was to open this door in the first alarm room after the alarm. Based on the way this run went, you can tell that I did not heed that advice, partially because I thought it had a hack lock on it, which would waste time. It does not have a hack lock. However, something else happened during that alarm, which is that the enemies only spawned on the left side, and as a result, they never had an opportunity to break the other door. So because of that, when I started the second alarm to cancel it, the enemies were able to spawn behind those 2 doors, and a few minutes later, they broke it, subsequently alerting a scout. All I can say is that we go again. Wave 1, Code 1, Wave 2, yes I went into baby mode again, I had like 4 bullets left after killing the tank, whatever. Code 2, Wave 3, Trap Scan, and then we kill everything. I was a bit luckier on this run, having the tank spawn further away, which gave me more time to kill the latent nightmares. With plenty of ammo on hand, it was only a matter of time. We killed the tank. There were a few stragglers of course, but after that, it was time to get Code 3. Arguably the easiest code, if not for all the stuff before it. We just walk into the front door, turn this left corner, and it's right there. There's invisible enemies in here, and 2 shadow scouts, and 2 mothers, so being patient is key as always. Once we get that done, the reactor is now completed, for the first time.
Oh my god.
The level is not over yet, but having cleared this part, I felt confident that I could make it here again if I tried. Since the timer is gone, we effectively have infinite time to complete the stage, which means that resources should no longer be inconvenient to find. The next step is completing the scans to that alarm we cancelled. Surprise, it spawns a Big Mother, which we prepared for by funneling her to this room. Basically, we don't want to fight her in the room adjacent to the respawned room. Being by herself though, she's not much of a challenge. Moving ahead, the next zone contains a bunch of shadows, so be wary. We should clear most of the rooms here, as there's a chance they wake up during the next alarm. That's right, it's the 3rd alarm of the level. The easiest one by far, however, as it just spawns shadows, and there's no purple scans that take forever to complete. I used mines and seafoamed every door, since there won't be many uses for Tool after this.
I'm not even hitting them, man.
With the alarm complete, we can move on to the next challenge of the level. We have to fight up to 3 sleeping tanks in the next zone, and depending on where they spawn, we might have to wake up more than 1 at a time. You know the drill by now though. We alert him and then sprint all the way to the pillar room to fight it. If things go wrong there, I can go baby mode. Regretfully, I gave health to the bots before doing this, and yeah, that shit is gone. Now for the real challenge at hand. This area may seem familiar, and if not, you'll recognize that this room is suspiciously large, with enough space for a certain Kraken enemy archetype. That's right, we're fighting him one last time. On this occasion, he has 4,500 health, 3 times more than the R8B2 encounter. There is a lot of ammo in this zone, but the problem is that it's mostly up top where we entered in, and not down here where we're supposed to fight him.
And worse than that, the increase in health is very apparent, taking at least a full hell rifle of ammo to pop a tumor. The burst cannons that the bots hold are actually decent contenders for damage, but they do not give a fuck about the Kraken. I suspected as much during the first encounter, but they don't target the bubbles at all, just the Kraken itself. This means that they're only good for the flyers that come out, and I would be 100% responsible for the boss. The sawed-off shotgun ends up helping us a bit here, since the Kraken tends to get really close, but it was after the third bubble that I figured I would fetch more ammo up top. This was a mistake, and even in the moment, I recognized as much. This might be a bad time to grab it, actually, while the red attack is happening. Oh, how red I was. It was a bad time. Fuck. How many did he shoot? No way. No way! Oh, how right I was. I could have, and I really should have waited until the red attack was over. In all of my time playing this level, this was the worst choke moment right here. The Kraken is just not hard in comparison to everything else this level throws at you, and I was disappointed. But after everything I had been through, hours and hours of failures, to make it this far was an achievement. To make it to the end of the level, that would solidify my place in GTFO history as one of the few players to beat this level alongside 3 bots, Bishop, Hackett, and Dada. The next day I logged on, determined to end this once and for all. I recognized eventually that we could just stay up top and avoid all of the attacks from the Kraken. The only downside is that our shotgun would get way less value, but whatever, just use it as much as you can. With the Kraken down, we have one last goal, to GTFO. Bringing the Matter Wave projector over here, we can set up a little bit by just absolutely splurging everywhere. I placed mines near the last doorway in hopes that it would deter an upcoming threat. Then we insert the Matter Wave projector and initiate the final sequence. The first of 3 scans is fairly straightforward, just shoot the strikers as they come. The sniper turret gets plenty of value here. After that scan, we head to the teleport platform and continue holding out. This is where 2 snatchers are supposed to come, and we flawlessly take care of them. It's over. Come on in, boys. There is just one more scan to complete for good measure. That's so long. It took so long. It's over. It's so nice. I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe. Like, if you asked me a year ago, I would have been like, man, 50% of the levels, at best, doing the spots only. It's fucking insane, man. So it's over. That's every rundown covered. There's a few levels that I did not complete, but that takes me to the next point of conversation, the direction of my channel starting here. I never really intended on being a GTFO channel, as there's not exactly a lot of content to make on a game that receives no updates. As cool as it was to become one of the best players around, I want to do a lot of other things with my channel, including video essays on random games and bizarre challenge runs that don't take me a year to finish. While I might maybe make some smaller videos covering the levels I didn't finish, that won't be for a good while. I also want to live stream more casual stuff, with the hopes of editing some fun/unique content out of it. If you're down for any of that, by all means stick around for it. As for the rest of you, I appreciate all the support that was given to me during this. GTFO is such a unique game with a very supportive community, at least in my experience. I wouldn't have made it here without the help of everyone there. So with that, I wish you all well. This has been Rob's Domain, and I look forward to seeing you again.